Good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. Thank you for the introduction and for the invitation to speak. My PowerPoint is going to be in Spanish, but I'm going to speak English. I haven't done this before, so I will try and go very gently. You know from the introduction that I'm an economic and monetary historian, and that means it gives me license to speak about many things, from economics to finance, from real economy to financial economy. And my background is 40 years in academic and business experience, and especially 40 years connected to the questions of farming. In my past, I've been a small-time farmer. I have had a whole food business. I drove a truck for many years. I have had stores, restaurants, and many practical activities. So I like to think that I know what I'm speaking about. I have plowed a field, and I've managed a negative cash flow for many, many years. So this gives me many credentials. In my later life, I became a specialist in macrofinance, and I work with colleagues in the City of London. So I come from a world which many of you may not be familiar with, or you may even have issues with. I have a wide range of experience, but I want to stay very focused on one, the Project Lobier, which I'm related to. I'll come back to that in a moment. I just want to say, for those who thought I was going to use PowerPoint Plus, which is using chalk on black paper, which I did last time, I've gone retrograde, and I'm using the old PowerPoint system. So if you came expecting me to be drawing on black paper, I'm very sorry. Now, I just want to make a contextual remark to explain why my perspective and my experience. A lot of what's been said this morning so far is kind of complaining about the macroeconomic situation, the general paradigm that exists in modern finance and modern economics, and has a tendency to say we need to get local. And I think this is very important. I don't wish to gainsay this. For me, it means, thanks largely to my wife, I eat a very organic diet. I try and buy only organic food. I try with my finances to pay the right prices. I do all I possibly can in my personal life to walk the talk of biodiversity, of organic farming, and so on. And this I encourage everybody to do. I have many colleagues who talk about one thing, and then if you go to the restaurant, they aim at a different kind of food source, and they kind of don't walk their talk. So I like to think this gives me credentials. I'm not claiming them, I just think it's important you know this, that for 40 years I have tried in my personal life to eat organic food, to shop organically, to pay the true price for things, and to do all I can in my own financial circumstances to support this way of looking at things. But I would have to say, after all this time, the macroeconomic policy that prevails today has no ear for this, and it doesn't really hear the message we want to give. So I'm going to come from the point of view of someone in the City of London that is, and I'm going to take a perspective which is very financial in the first place. I think it's an important thing to note that when, I think you call it transgenic here in Spain, or geo-modified food and other terms, for me, this is a kind of metaphor in the organic world, in the farming world, for very abstract finance. They kind of go together. So whenever I see or hear about transgenics, I see this as a form of agriculture which is well suited to abstract modern finance. And therefore, if you want to get beyond that kind of farming, or if you want to produce a way of farming which is a match for transgenics, you have to overcome abstract finance. And that's largely what I want to talk about today. The theme of the conference, I think, is viability in, I've lost it now, but viability in economics and social viability of farming. The example I want to give of Lobier is an example, I think, of viability, both social, financial, and agricultural. But I do want to say about viability, that viability, in my experience, is not a comfortable ride. If you want to find your farming which is socially, financially, and agriculturally viable, this is a tough journey to take. So if you think viability means sitting back and relaxing, I would say forget it. Viability means a continual struggle to maintain your ideals against all sorts of opposition. And so for me, the crucial viability is whether those who want to take this kind of struggle are viable individuals, whether they really have it in them just to keep on going constantly and never losing touch with this intention of theirs. Now, the example I want to give you is Laubier. This is, I've started with a picture from Laubier is a farm and a restaurant and a hotel, and it's in western Switzerland, Neuchâtel, and it looks out. This is the view from the restaurant. Check, you've got that, at the Alps in the morning. And this is the website if you need to know, want to visit. And I have to press one button, which is probably that one. Yeah. Okay. And now I want to talk briefly about the objectives. The objective of Laubier, I'm going to stick to my English, is to provide a financial and economic envelope for a biodynamic farm. We do this in three main ways. We provide land and buildings. We have 3 hotels, 2 restaurants, and a shop. And this we use as outlets for the product of our own farm and for other farms, and as a form of promotion. Meaning, if people come to buy things in our shop, this is promoting organic farming, not only our own farm, but other farms whose products we sell. And we provide research grants and facilities for research. One that I want to mention here is the Aceta wheat strand or grain breed. I can't find the word in English. This was developed by Peter Kunz on our farm with a very large grant from the co-op in Switzerland. And this is a wheat grain, which is a manifestation against transgenic agriculture. Namely, we develop the wheat on our farm so that it is a modern wheat and it makes good bread, good bread flour. It's a very important thing to be able to say that we've developed this wheat so that we have a kind of not just a complaint about genetic modification, but we're trying to develop a farming which is as strong as that, but on its own principles. So that's the third way. We provide land and buildings, we provide outlets for food, and we provide research possibilities. The beginning of Laubier, this is an old picture from 1979, I think, and it shows you the big building in the middle. It was an old restaurant that had gone bankrupt, and it was about to become a nightclub, and the little buildings to its bottom right were the old village farm. And 2 friends from the village, one became the farmer, he inherited the farm from his father, the other inherited some money and he bought the defunct restaurant. They then very quickly put this 2 properties into a Société Anonyme, into a private limited company, in exchange for shares to the value of their properties, and they became the first directors. It has a very special capital structure so that the capital that they then put into this company remains at the service of the entrepreneurs who work there, and the entrepreneurs remain linked to their initiatives. Our main concern is when someone wants to start something, that the financing enables him to stick to his intentions and he's not distracted. And this, as I'll explain later, this arrangement allows other people to become involved as investors or entrepreneurs. The farm, because I'm focusing on the farm, this is the brand new farm we built in 1988. On the right-hand side, I think a big building with solar panels. This is our stabling. We have 24 cows with horns, free stabled. This is a very expensive decision to take if you're an investor. It's much easier to chop the horns off, put them in boxes. But if you decide to free stable 24 cows with their bull, with horns, in one building, you can double, if not treble, the surface area. This is an expensive decision you have to take, and it means you have to think very long term. So that's a decision we took, and the farm building on the right is where the 24 cows and their bull are free stable, plus the hay. And on the left, you have the blue building, which is the farm housing, and in between is the research center and the dairy, which you can hardly see. So this is a biodynamic farm, so it's a mixed farm as much as possible. We have 35 acres, hectares. It's in Switzerland, so some of the land is up on the meager pastures. The point of our business of Laubier is this. This is a picture, not a very good one, supposed to show the instability of modern finance caused by the bond markets and the share markets in particular, and the egoism which drives these markets, the intention of people to put money into something and take it out the minute it starts losing money. This constant intention in the financial markets only to let people have money when it makes money for them and to take it out the minute it starts losing money. This is the cause of all worldwide instability. I speak macro terms. And our primary concern was, could we, in a micro situation, in a small little situation, do something to change this paradigm? The main purpose, therefore, is, I put it in the slide, to take the egoism out of capitalism, to stop people simply using their capital to further their own ends, and to use that capital to enable farmers to farm, in this case. Our main concern is to support what we call entrepreneurs. Some of these are farmers. The guy in the top middle, Uli Huerta, is our farmer. The lady below him is his wife. The others are other directors. This is the board of Laubier. They are all entrepreneurs. They are all responsible for their budgets, and they have to bring the plane in on time and land it where they said they would. That's a big story. I just wanted to give you an image of people. These are the people in Laubier that we finance. These are the entrepreneurs that we are capitalizing through our company. Today, from the initial starting point where we had two people who put their property into this one Société Anonyme, this is now changed. We have 1,308 investors, 707 shareholders, they have a vote, 143 shareholders without a vote, 422 bondholders. We issue bonds 5-year duration at 2% of amounts of 10,000 francs. And we have direct loans of 192. And then we have institutional investors, pensions, banks, and so on. So that gives you an image of the kind of the way that our little society is financed. It went from two people who put their assets into the company in exchange for shares. This means they could get their money back, but they retain ownership of the assets. Very important for farmers. To then, so to speak, selling or increasing the share offer. So we have 1,308 investors. And this is a very important thing if you're a farm. To know you have 1,300 investors is a very important social consideration. The purpose of doing this, and I might have to slow down because I'm going too quickly, the purpose of doing this in the macro situation is to create an opportunity that changes attitudes and changes the market. It gives people an opportunity to say, okay, I have shares in the Zurich stock market, I'm going to cash those in, and I'm going to buy shares in an organic farm. You can't use your money twice. So if you're going to liquidate your shares in the Zurich stock market and buy shares in an organic farm, this is an opportunity to do it. And there are many people who, consciously or otherwise, are looking to switch their investments from such a market to such a market. They get what one might call a green dividend. And this is very important for many people. Similarly with the bond markets, there are many people who know the problems of the bond markets. If they're really awake, they know the bond markets and the share markets today are the worst things going for the bond markets and the share markets. It's time to change them. And you can either wait till there's a market correction, or you can wait till there's a crash and hope you got out just before it crashed, which is most people's strategy, or you can change. And you can put your shares into a different kind of economy, and you can put your bonds into a different kind of economy. But in that economy, you will stay with the thing you've invested in. You will not seek the exit door the minute it gets difficult. This is the difference. So in this small extent, our balance sheet is not many millions, as you saw. To this small extent, the people who are investing with us have changed their attitudes and they've changed the market. The important thing about the way this is working, and this may sound kind of boring, but it's crucial, is the way the majority shareholding is treated. I said back here we have 707 shareholders with vote, 143 without vote. Of the 707 with a vote, they have 4 million Swiss francs capital. And this is organized in the following way. L'Aubier is a Société Anonyme. Hope that's some language, it's not English. French, I think that was. And it's controlled by an association with public benefit in the Swiss sense. So you cannot speculate in L'Aubier. You cannot buy it out. You cannot influence it through speculative motives. It's just not possible for the reason shown here, that when someone buys a share worth 1,000, what I call the individual investors, they actually pay a 10% premium. They pay 1,100 for these 1,000 shares, these shares worth 1,000, and with this extra 100, we then finance a little association of which I'm a member, and this association is constantly kept as the majority shareholder. So the technique is the shareholders in L'Aubier, they pay a premium of 10% to buy their shares, and with this, their money, they finance this association so that the normal shareholders never have the majority. And this is a subtle and, I think, a brilliant piece of financial engineering. And with this arrangement, it's not just protecting the purpose of L'Aubier to provide this financial and economic envelope for organic farming. We're doing that with the money and the will forces of our investors. And that's the important point. Many people ask why we are a Société Anonyme, a limited company, and not a cooperative. The reason is not so much because I would say we have anything against cooperatives, but if you go back in time to where cooperatives came from, especially to mid-19th century England, they arose because the capitalist system had a serious downside. It basically wasn't interested in people. And if you look at the 19th century situation, early 19th century in England, when Marx came visiting and the cooperatives began, they began as a response to a capitalist system which could not share its profit. And it's not complicated to say, well, what would have happened if then the capitalist system had figured out how to share its profit? The answer is there would have been no cooperatives. There would have been no need for them. And so our point of view is, you go back to the middle 19th century, we stop and we start again. You take this anathema for most people, the Société Anonyme, and you reorganize it so that it shares profits, so that it capitalizes entrepreneurs, so that it puts its money behind farming, not in it until it's uncomfortable. These are the things which the form of capital we use makes possible. I could say a lot more about this, but I'm mindful of the time, so I'll just say one main thing about this. The capital structure of L'Aubier is really focused on capitalizing individual entrepreneurs. I showed the picture of the farmer. That farmer was interviewed many years ago. I've been involved with L'Aubier for 30 years, and we had to find someone to farm our farm. And we interviewed various farmers, and we arrived with this farmer. And this is a very important thing to tell you. This farmer is a young person who wanted to farm. He had no capital and no farm. We were young people who needed to farm our land. We had the farm, we had the capital. We were not farmers, or rather, we were, but we wanted to get on with something else. So we needed to find a young farmer. And to this young farmer, we then entrusted our farm, our meaning the company. And this is, for me, a very important image. Many young people today would like to farm. They have no access to credit, no access to farms. Many people have farms and no interest in farming. And it's very important to just stress our primary concern is how do we as a company bring the economic and financial resources for a young person so this person can then farm to the extent which, in our case, because of Swiss law, in order to receive subsidies for the farming, we had to lease the farm to this person. So very concretely, it's not for us about cooperatives, it's about raising capital, which is then put at the disposition of concrete individuals, and they then have to make it work. And this is a very important consideration. The other macro point I want to make is, if you go into this in detail, I gave the example, if you want to free stable 24 cows with horns and their bull, this is a huge economic decision. This needs a time frame at least of 40 years if you're going to go down this path. It means, though, that you're taking your cue from the nature, the kind of economic nature of farming, not from the nature of farming seen from the accountant's office. It was touched on this morning how much of modern farming is driven by an industrial paradigm from the Industrial Revolution. And it's one of the most important things that one could look into. What does it really mean if from a normal, and I say from a city perspective in finance, you now take your cue from the nature of farming? I'm just going to stay with the one example. There aren't many accountants, many investors, many bankers, with due respect to banks president, who would understand a business that opts to build a building for 24 free stable cows with horns and their bull. If you know anything about finance, economics, farming, this is a crazy decision. This commits you to a 40-year time frame at least, if you're in business. We made actually a competition, and we had 3 architects competed, and we went with the most expensive, because that was the one that didn't chop the horns off. And if you know your farming, in Switzerland we had this wonderful campaign from our farmer, a cow without horns is not a cow. And we take that very seriously. A cow without horns is not a cow. And so, I won't give you other examples, but I just want to give a huge clue. To take your cue in finance from the nature, the economic nature of farming is our biggest challenge. It's certainly a challenge when you explain it in the city. But I want to end then by saying we've gone from 2 people who had an intention, who made an agreement with each other, to over 1,200 investors. And these are people who show up at our AGM. We never have less than 300. If we have a seed sowing day, which is our annual demonstration against GM, we usually get 400 or 500 investors show up and hand sow our own wheat in our fields. Not only as a demonstration against GM, but that way we sow the wheat for the year. When times get hard, and times do get hard, not only in Spain, the party doesn't only happen in Spain. When times get hard in farming, these people are crucial because they've participated in our impulse through their investment. They then show up when there's a problem. They may show up physically, but they also show up and they don't tug on their money when things get tight. This is what bond markets do. Maybe not yet in Spain, but in Greece, when it gets tight, you penalize the Greeks. That's how the bond markets work. You need a bond market which doesn't penalize people when things get difficult, but does the opposite. This is not easy to construct. But if you do go down this path, at least in our experience, you have a capital base, you have social viability in this sense, you have financial viability, and you have agricultural viability. The very last thing I would say is that crucial to this is the last thing on the slide here, cuentas transparentes. A major part of our work has been to develop internal and external transparency in our accounts. So we have one set of accounts which we show inside and outside. We don't have several sets of accounts, such as you have in Argentina, maybe not in Spain. One for the visiting bankers and one for the taxman and another one for the president, I don't know who else. We have one set of accounts. They're the management accounts, warts and all. They're visible internally. The board meets every Tuesday to track where it is in its finances, and these accounts are then the ones presented at the annual general meeting. And this transparency in accounting right into the details, over-detailed for some people, I think is quite crucial. This builds an understanding, a financial understanding for what we're trying to do. And if I would end on a strange remark, I think this kind of accounting, this way of working transparently with finance, this is actually the finance of the future. This is tomorrow's money. That's me done. And 20 past 12, I hope that's okay.
We have time for some questions. Perdón, tenemos tiempo para algunas preguntas.
I should say I understand Spanish, but I don't speak it.
Well,
So careful what you say.
yeah. Okay. ¿Hay preguntas en la sala? Ayudar a la...
Yeah, I can't see. Is someone here?
Hola, gracias por la charla. Estoy aquí. En la izquierda aquí, el que mueve la mano.
Okay, muy bien.
Quisiera preguntarle, porque claro, este sistema está muy bien, pero hay que tener en cuenta que en Suiza hay inversores. Aquí hay presidentes de fútbol y el resto estamos pues un poco viéndolas venir. Yo en concreto soy ingeniero técnico agrícola, estoy en el paro por querer dedicarme a la agricultura ecológica. Tengo compañeros que no están en el paro porque están vendiendo productos de Monsanto, de Bayer, etcétera. Lo que sí que quería preguntarle es si, en el caso de que no haya aquí inversores, si un inversor pudiera ser, por ejemplo, Triodos, ¿usted se lo imagina sembrando el día de la siembra los directivos de un banco, por ejemplo? O sea, ¿cómo se puede suplir el tema de inversores en el Mediterráneo o en el sur, o en los países que somos de la banda magnética esta, que nos tiene a Merkel aquí situados? Gracias.
You're asking an Englishman to speak about this? First of all, if you haven't tried it, don't comment. So unless you've tried this and it didn't work, I would say first try it and then see if it doesn't work. First create a business to do what I'm describing and see if people show up or not. But importantly, you have to put some money in the game. This is normal from a capitalist point of view. Many projects, they begin with no capital, and this is their biggest problem. So you need to put some money in the game. How you do it, I don't mind. But this is the important little detail. This started with two guys who put their assets in the business, not saying, has anyone got any money? And this is a very important social message to normal investors. Why would I join you if you haven't already walked your talk? Then I would say in a place like Spain, but here I'm speaking not as Lobi, but as a macroeconomist, I don't buy it. I go all around the world. There's nowhere that doesn't have capital. There's lots of on-radar capital, which we have problems with. But there's lots of capital which is off-radar, I'm sure also in Spain. So I basically don't buy the argument you're making. I think, first of all, people need to see something which is really different, paradigmatically different, and I think Lobier is. And then my experience is, then they come up to you after the break, and they say, well, you know, would you come and have a chat with me because I've got my money here and there, it's in Santander or wherever it is, and what should I do? So I would just say, make an example, and let's see if nobody shows up. Also in Spain. I'm very aware I'm in Spain. Last month I spent the month in Argentina, have a big affinity with Mediterranean places. But also in Argentina, it was all about how do you finance real estate so the farmer is free to farm? How do you protect them from Cargill, from all sorts of things that go on there? I won't talk about their president. And the answer is always the same. You just start in a situation which is protected by its capital structure. In this situation, the speculators cannot come in, but the people who don't want to speculate, but do have resources, they will come in. And one thing I would say, which is very important in this way of financing, is if you buy shares in a company or you buy bonds, this is no tax event. You've not given any money away. You can say to your heirs, son, you have all my money coming to you. It's just in the form of shares. It's not yet given away, and it's not a tax event. And this releases large amounts of capital that people didn't think they had at their disposal. Savings, pension funds. I could go on forever. especially the pension funds. We have a pension fund that invests in us because that pension fund is the most performant pension fund in Switzerland. Why? Because it does things like invest in us. Performant in the Swiss Pension Authority said, your pension fund is the most performant over 25 years, and you run at 4%, not 8%. Why? Because you invest in businesses like this. So I could speak a long time. Try it and see with my example, and let's find what the problems are in Spain, the actual problems. Hope I haven't been rude. Okay.
¿Otra pregunta?
Aquí.
Sí.
Hola. Sí, yo quería preguntarle si le exigen algún tipo de rentabilidad a las inversiones a las que ustedes apoyan o que son apoyadas por este sistema que acaba de explicar.
Yes. Here I have to tiptoe. I didn't bring the balance sheet because I don't know where this is going. It's being filmed, and so there's certain things I'm not showing you. I want to make a point in principle. I think the profit is crucial, but for a very specific reason. If we go back to the beginning of the 19th century, and if the capitalists then had asked themselves, what is profit? The answer should have been, I think, profit is the only way that a modern individual knows he's serving the community. I'll say that very emphatically. If you're trying to figure out whether the way you farm, the way you do this or do that, is the right thing for you to do to serve your fellow men, the only metric we have is you show a profit. This is fundamental for me. That means the profit must be so-called social and financial. But it's the only metric we have. If you take this metric away, there's no way you can know whether what you did is what you should have done or whether it was valued. This is crucial. But it tracks on, because if you do it in accounting terms, where does the profit go to? It goes onto the own capital account of the business. And this is so important. You're internally generating capital from what you do. This capital does not belong to the shareholders. It does notionally, but in economic terms, it doesn't belong to them. All it means is, if I lend money to a company, and now I've lent, say, 10,000 euros, I owe you 10,000 euros. It's an illusion if you think the 10,000 euros I'm going to give you back are the same ones. They're not. If you lend me 10,000 euros and I buy a tractor, if you want your money back, too bad. You can have a tractor worth 7,500 euros. Because once I've touched your 10,000, I have bought a tractor. Now I have to use this tractor and amortize it and depreciate it and create a profit farming in order to repay you the amount I owe you. But it's not the same euros. No way. I've had to completely recreate this 10,000 euros, and out of a convention, I give it to you. It's nonsense, economically speaking, complete nonsense. The image you should have is, here it is, goodbye, good luck, good farming. And now when I recreate this 10,000 euros out of my farming, and I say, would you like this back? Okay, but you need the experience as an investor. You're getting back the capital that the farmer created. You're not getting back the capital you gave him. This is a complete illusion. And if one understands this, then you can come into a certain sense with investors. So we need to participate, we need to be partners with the farmers. And the profit in this sense is not theirs or ours. It's a moot point who it belongs to. Technically in Laubier, because if you want to make a business decision, don't start a farm with 24 cows without horns, free stable with their bull. Don't start a hotel and don't start a restaurant all at the same time. You know, if you're going to have a farm like this, buy a piece of real estate in Madrid, maybe not Madrid, Dubai. This will balance out the losses you're going to make on the farming. But don't think you're going to balance that out with a hotel. What we did is through real estate development. So we own a lot of houses in the village. Because in today's conventional world, that's, for me, axiomatic. If you want to find a solution for farming, largely today you have to do it by real estate. You have to work the real estate market and then forego the profit on the real estate market. This is getting technical. But if in your company you have on one end real estate working in the market and on the other end a farm, you can run this at a rental which allows a farm to be rent-free. It still works, you still have to be profitable, but the last thing I would say that you need to, investors today, they need to be educated. What does profit mean in the first place? I've already described that. What is possible in the 21st century? Is it really possible to make a serious profit without extracting your cash? Most of the profit we make today, from a financial point of view, is simply because we extract cash and we move on to another part of the world and we leave that part of the world ruined. If you fly around the world, it's very clear. All the capital arrives in Dubai, and who needed a mile-high building opened by Kylie Minogue for £17 million? Who needed this? Nobody. The investors needed it because as they flew around the world, they were ruining all the tracts of land everywhere. And from their point of view, it looks profitable. From a global point of view, they just need to put this together with this, and they will see the profit norm is not here, it's here. And it has to be worked at all the time. There's no free lunch, if I may say so, except here for me today.